Everybody, welcome back to yet another video. So what are these two top secret tone shaping tools that I'm talking about in the theme and title of this video? Well, it might not be what some folks think. I spend a lot of time on my channel diving into the Helix and using EQ blocks or high and low shelves, different effects, different amp settings, different microphone combinations, cabinets, you name it, to shape tone. And that's one thing that, amazing tool we have with so many variables and possibilities to come up with the tone we want. But what if we are presented with a tone? A couple of scenarios here. What if we're presented with a tone that we have to play through that isn't quite where we want it? Maybe it's too bright, maybe it's too distorted, or a number of other things that could be wrong with it. Or maybe we created a tone for our Les Paul, and now we want to play with a Strat or a Tele, or vice versa. Well, the two tools, top secret tools I'm talking about are these guys right here. Our volume and our tone controls on our guitar. Now, not every guitar is the same. Some guitars have one volume control, some have no tone controls. Most, though, I would say have at least one tone and one volume control. And you might say, well, how are those top secret, tone shaping tools? Well, the reason I say that is because so many folks know that, we have this volume control, we can turn it up and down, tone control as well, but so few folks anymore talk about using those to shape the tone that they're playing at any given time. I think it's kind of almost, I dare to say, an old school way of thinking where players used to plug into, a single channel guitar amp, crank it up, and then just use their volume control to control how much overdrive and distortion they actually got and play everything from fairly clean to edge of breakup to all-out lead tones. And I think whether we want to go back to that extreme or not, we can still talk a lot about how we can use these to shape the tone without even maybe being, like I said, quite as extreme as only having one sound. But I find myself playing live a lot where I do have maybe my HX stomp board set up with 3 snapshots going from clean all the way up to lead. And sometimes I end up just kind of sticking on, my middle snapshot or my lead snapshot and seldom changing and just using my tone and volume controls as they're right at my fingertips to constantly be adjusting things to where I need. So here I have my Fender Elite Tele. Love this guitar. I have a preset that actually I'm working on to release on Marketplace pretty soon. And I'm set up here on the lead setting. So let me just play this for you. The reason I chose this is I actually used a humbucker equipped guitar to dial this tone in. And I never tried it on a Tele yet. I'm still working on this. It's a work in progress still. But I had never used a Tele, so when I plug the Tele in, here's what the lead sound sounds like with tone and volume on full. Now, I don't dislike that tone, but it does have an edge to it, which could work in some situations, but maybe some folks would find that that's maybe too edgy or too bright. So what do? Well, number one, let's talk about the tone control. So I find, in my experience, most players just seem to go to their volume and tone and just crank them up to 10 and leave it there. Now, again, I know there's a lot of you folks out there who probably may not do that, but in my experience in teaching guitar for many years, watching people in the studio, I would say more often than not, most folks just go and just put those all in 10. And even myself, a lot of times I'm guilty of that too. Well, I'm not guilty of it, I just do that because it's giving me the desired results that I want at that given moment. But let's say that we were playing with this tone and we found it a little too thin sounding or edgy sounding. We don't necessarily have to go to the tone control and crank it all the way down. This is like a dimmer switch on a light, right? It isn't just necessarily on and off where it's like, okay, we've got our bright tone and now we've got our dark tone. We can edge that down and sometimes just rolling it off by 1 or 2 marks on the, well, marks, if there's marks, like something like a Strat, but just 1 or 2 notches is going to help to just maybe take the edge off of a tone or take the element of a tone that we don't like down. Let's see what we can do with that. So here it is again on 10, everything on 10. I'm going to bring that down a couple notches. notice the difference already? Let me go back to the top. Put it back to 10. So even there, I probably have gone down maybe halfway on the tone control, and it really shaped that tone differently. So if I was in a situation where I had this preset, which was dialed in for a different guitar, and I was playing it and I had my telly, I could simply just listen to that, even within, you know, a few seconds of the song. And maybe it's going to get rid of some of those elements in the tone that I was not happy with. Let's go all the way down with it. All the way back up. So big difference in the extremes, and you know we can start at the bottom if it's really a thin sound that we don't like. Just inch a little back in. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the tone control there. I kind of like it there versus the other sort of full setting because this preset was dialed in with a different guitar. And again, maybe once I'm in the mix, playing with the band or in the studio, I find that, you know what, I actually want that extra bite and I can just simply roll that back in. Okay, what about the volume control? Well, the volume control is going to allow us to really alter the amount of overdrive and distortion that the sound or the tone is going to have simply by feeding less input into the amp, right? So we might dial a sound in with one guitar with lower output pickups. We switch to a guitar with higher output pickups, and all of a sudden, this is really more distorted than we remember. Well, it's quite simple. We can just roll our guitar volume back. So you can take something like this with the guitar volume on 10. Roll that guitar volume back. Now you're probably never going to turn it into a sparkly clean tone. Quite a stark contrast to what we started off with the volume all the way up. Keep in mind now, with that tone all the way up as well. That's the way the tone started, and I could go all the way down to something like this. And with the way I pick, even finger picking. So quite amazing how much variety we can have with one tone. I guess my point is it's not always about adding an EQ to our helix patch or dialing in the sound much different. We can take what we have to work with and use the tools on our guitar. And one bonus tip would be also, maybe using a different pickup. If I go back to kind of where I had the tone with the lower volume, switch to the middle position. Neck pickup. Go back to what we started with. We have something very different. So, volume and tone, huge, huge tools. And that's why I refer to this as sort of two top secret, even though they're not top secret. We all have them, we're all out in the open, but so many of us could potentially forget that we have those tools. Crank them to 10, leave them alone, let's just go with it. And we've got a lot of powers at our fingertips. Beyond that, I've talked before in videos about just our playing style and hitting softer, right? With the volume rolled back, change the pickup. You've got so many tone possibilities right at our fingertips on our guitar itself that sometimes if we overlook that, we're really missing out on some wonderful tone shaping possibilities. So I just wanted to talk about that today because I think it's an important point. In all the years I've been reading the forums about the Helix and discussing with hundreds, if not thousands of people who send me messages, asking me about this and that, the other, very seldom do I ever hear anybody talking about ever utilizing their tone and volume. And it may just be something that people don't talk about, but I think it could be such a useful tool to tone shaping, taking existing presets we have and altering them in that manner depending on the guitar we're using, right? So just some food for thought, and I thought that would be a fun topic to talk about and do a little bit of a demonstration with. So I hope that's helpful to some of you folks. Please like the video, share it if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new videos out. And I got a lot more stuff coming down soon, and hopefully enjoyable content that you guys will find entertaining, useful, helpful. I hope. All right, thanks again for tuning in, guys. I'll be back soon. Ciao for now.